the vulnerability for a spy is not when they steal the information, because a spy has been targeted and selected specifically because they have access to information. The difficulty in where most spies are caught is either they're caught with the information or with the special equipment they use to steal it. Consequently, the ability to hide secrets and hide tradecraft equipment becomes an integral part of a spy's training.
Training taught by all intelligence agencies. Retired KGB General Oleg Kalugin.
You have to be prepared to act clandestinely, in a secret way. And that means that you have to prepare in your home or in your office or wherever, places where you could hide the stuff prepared for an eventual transfer to the intelligence service. Whether this is in secret writing.
Hello, world. This is T.J. Morris, and you're listening to ET Radio. Welcome aboard. I hope you can hear me. I'm having to make some arrangements here. I saw Janet on, so Janet, stand by. I couldn't see my buttons for some reason, so I'm having to shut down my computer completely and start over, so it's shutting down now. So everybody, we are here, and we're just having a little technical difficulty for some reason, and it had our show starting later, Janet, so I hope you can hear me. I've called in, and I got my computer up, but none of the buttons were open, and none of them were there. So I'm hoping it's just because of my computer being on today, and I'm restarting now. And then we will get started with our women's show for Janet Carol Lessin and Theresa J. Morris sharing our stories today. We're starting where we left off last week, and we appreciate you guys supporting us while we get together our ET contacts, and we're going to have a gathering and seminars together. And we've been looking for other people that want to share our vision, and it's not that easy, because people are scattered all over the world, and there's plenty of them, there's no doubt, but getting them all to come together in one organization is what I'm finding a little harder to do than I imagined. But we see each other on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter, all these social media ways of connecting to each other, and that's what Janet and I are doing now. And we are talking about going to other conferences and sharing our talks just as speakers. And I believe Janet's going to be going to San Diego and a conference at the San Diego Conference Center, June 6th, 7th, and 8th, I believe. And she may, as soon as I can get her on here, talk about that. And I'm trying to get my computer up right now and get the studio back on so I can punch buttons. And it's coming slowly but surely. It's 8:03 now. Today's date is Wednesday, April 16th, 2014. And Janet and I represent the Ascension Center organization. So together, she and I are going to be asking others that are light workers and truth seekers in our groups, our metaphysical groups, with mystics, oracles, psychics, sages, seers, and shaman. And we support art, culture, education, science, technology, history, and folk life. And her husband, Dr. Alexander Sasha Lessin, is an anthropologist, PhD, and master's in psychology. Myself, my background, and Janet's is both in psychology, and we have been counselors, life coaches, spiritual advisors, tantrikas, I guess you'd say tantra masters, and we are ascension masters, and that's what we teach. And together we have decided for the last 3 years, or this is our third year, to help in broadcast media that of our belief systems that alien civilizations exist. And we are alien contactees, and we have been sharing our stories. And if you want to go back and hear them, they're on blogtalkradio.com/TJ Morris ET Radio, as well as Aquarian Radio. And we're going to be putting them on other locations as well, so we can just share the word and get the word out about what we support. And we are about the Ascension age, and that is about raising consciousness, raising awareness of the entire species of this planet, and how there are other levels of existence above this planet, and there are beings that exist there, and we are in contact with those. And it's pretty curious how many different ways that we on the earth say that we are sharing with these beings, whether one wants to believe that or not. And if you personally have had an interest in that contact, whether you believe they are of your higher power, your source, your God, goddess, your angels, any type of guides, any type of belief system, or if you're like us and have learned about them being beings from other places, including sightings with extraterrestrial ships, would like to know. We don't judge. Whatever your story is your experiences, your stories. And we've been very fortunate to find others that believe just like we do. And I'm still trying to get my show up here, so it has something to do with, I guess, my maybe my web browsers. I don't know, but I'm doing what I can now to get it up here and pull up so I can get Janet on here and let her introduce herself and what she's all about. So I'm trying, Janet, if you can hear me, I'm trying to get us. It seems like there's always something, and I've had plenty of time to get this worked out today, but thought it looked fine when I was on earlier, but for some reason now it's deciding to be finicky. Could be the time that everybody comes on. This is prime time, folks, and that's when everybody wants to be on is prime time. I pay extra so we can have this time, and I'm still waiting. It says processing request, resolving some type of hosting issues here. So let me punch on login one more time and see if I can't get on. I should see my show page. Well, it's kicked me out again. So just a moment. And I would normally let Janet talk, but I can't see her to punch on, and I don't want to have to go back through all this again, so I'm just going to keep talking here and get me through this dry spell of whatever it is that is causing my computers not to cooperate with me. I know it's been a strange day. We had the blood moon last night, the full moon. For those of you that could see it, I slept through it, and we'll get to talk about, come on, studio. Well, I'm trying to get there, folks. I'm just about open. For all you out there that run Blog Talk Radio shows, you know sometimes we can have little rifts in here, but very seldom. They've gotten much better, and I think it just has to do with my particular computer today, and I'm doing what I can now to get us on here, and then we will start sharing our story as soon as my computer stops being finicky. And they've been adding all these extra advertisements on the pages, and I know that sure slows it down, but I don't control that. That's Blog Talk Radio, because I've had people ask me if I could, and I apologize, I cannot. Those are not up to me. That's what helps pay the bills. Finally. Let me see if Janet, did you stay with me, Janet, for these 12 minutes?
Yeah. I didn't know when you get done talking. You're very good at talking. Well, go in there. You're good doing computers and talking at the same time. That was great.
Oh, it was amazing. Yes.
Amazing.
Here we are, folks. Yay.
We're up and running.
All right, Janet. Yeah, I didn't know if you could hear me. It's like it feels like a dead spot, so I didn't know if I was on the air or not when you're panicking and you don't have your show up. So here we are.
There.net. Got that T-shirt. Yeah, that really bites. That bites when you're sitting there going, oh, I'm talking to myself. I hope I'm not sounding boring. But
it feels, it felt the whole time like there was nothing on the other end. So I'm amazed that you could hear me. But I'm glad I'm here now. I can see my buttons all as well. Our computers are up, and I've got women, Janet Lessin and Theresa J. Morris, E.T. Contact Growing Up. and I've seen from my numbers that people do come back and listen to us. I don't see anybody in the chat room, so it could be. I changed the name of it today. I had Ascension Center up first. I went, well, I'll put women and then put our names and then ET Contact Growing Up, because that's more in line with what we're doing today.
I like the title. I have a friend, what's his name? Drawing a blank on his name. I think it's Alex. Alex or Paul. Anyway, he's going to be calling in from the Chicago area. And if you see someone show up, but he didn't know if he was going to be able to make it. He had a conflict in his schedule, and I keep inviting people. So anyway, if you see people show up, say, hey, who are you? And get to a logical point of our story, and we'll just see who's there. Or maybe they have something to share or comments or whatever.
Okay.
So,
well, I'll give people our call-in number. It's 347-945-7207. For those of you that want to check in with Janet and I weekly or join our Ascension Center, we both have websites. AscensionCenterorg.com is mine, and AscensionCenter.net, N-E-T, is Janet. So don't get confused with the .org. It's not. It's AscensionCenterorg.com. I kept asking people, and they keep wanting to say .com, so I went, okay, I'll make it AscensionCenterorg.com. So that's what it is, and Janet's AscensionCenter.net, and we hope to get all our radio shows posted here and with FreedomTalkRadio.net in the States and FreedomTalkRadio.co.uk in the UK, and Janet's going to be helping us post all those. Janet, you want to talk about where you're located?
If there's any volunteers that would like to help us, we can add them as contributors or authors, and they can maybe help embed our shows in our various sites. It'd be nice to go back and get all of our Ascension Center broadcasts and put them up on the AscensionCenterorg.com and AscensionCenter.net sites, so people could just click through the embeds on those sites. But I don't have enough hours in the day to do all this. I have all these ideas, but if anybody wants to help, we could teach you how to do it, and you could just add all our shows to our various sites as contributors or authors.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people that acted like they were very sweet and would help us, but I never think to ask the people when they're in my queues or in my email or anything, and I've got several I've pulled into the shows on LinkedIn and given me endorsements even for bringing them on the show. So we'll just have to learn. We're learning, folks. I know it sounds funny, but we're learning
every
what
day
all
of
we're
our lives.
supposed to be doing.
That's what life is about, the constant learning process.
It is.
So, what do you? I know last week. Talk right now. Last week, we kind of left it hanging. We were talking about our life stories, and we were in our late teen years. And let's go back to you, because I know you had children. You had 4 children, and I had 0 children that came through this birth canal of mine. I may have I know I have children on the other side, the contactee, abductee type children. I've seen them. I've been shown them. And mine are not gray hybrids, by the way, which is another thing that's not typical with the typical contactee story. But you have one of the most unique stories on the entire planet, T.J. Morris. And we were going to pick up with your children and your pregnancies, and then off to Montauk. So would you like to tell us about your 4 daughters and cover Montauk? So this will probably be about 15, 20 minutes with your story. Would you like to do that for us, TJ?
Sure.
I'd love to hear it. And I know our listeners
we
would
can
love
start there. Volley back and forth the way we do with both our stories. I think it blends real well on a chronological timeline. We're trying to get our stories down, folks, so we can hopefully make you feel more comfortable that you've heard ours, or we can tell you to come back and listen to these archives in 2014 when we started this process. So you'll know that our stories were out there. We want to support everybody, and it's a process that we're sharing with each other, that we've known each other for several years and been talking about the alien ET UFO community since roughly 2007, when I started writing for the UFO Digest. It was also the year I was talking with friends that knew Janet and I both, whether we've never met them, but they knew us online in the UFO community. And Janet and I started talking about our times in Hawaii, and that's how we came up with sharing the Ascension Center together. And then she has always been one to go to conferences, and I've been through a few years ago, too, roughly the same time that she and I may have met. But she and I were both going to Spiritual World Network in Hawaii, and that was roughly 93, 94, somewhere in there. And then I left the islands in late 94, about July or August 94, I believe, and then came over here. But we're going back and telling our life stories, and we've caught you up if you want to go back and find them on Wednesdays. And I'll try to go back and number them and get more efficient at how you can find them. But Jan and I are up to our teens now. We started it from the crib or being born and moved up through various things that happened to us up to our teen years. And I'm up to where I had married a man that was my high school sweetheart, and I had signed up some government papers in May 67, and he began working at NASA after it was during the Vietnam War. And we were up to, I had Angela. She was born March 25th, 1968. And we had gone to Montauk. Steve's parents had transferred from NASA in Houston to Long Island, New York, and lived out on Montauk Point, where the lighthouse is, literally out on the Long Island, and it's called Montauk Point, oddly enough. And there was, he worked at the space, there was a Grumman Aircraft Center there, I believe, working on classified airspace, classified space, I don't know if it was for NASA, I don't know, because it was classified what he was working on. But he worked for Grumman Aerospace. And those of you that have been around engineers, NASA, you know there's always various contractors. And there was Grumman, Martin Marietta, TRW in Houston that I can remember, and various other companies that come and go. And this was when man walked on the moon, 69. But Angela was a baby when I went up, and she and I went up to Montauk Point for that summer with her grandparents. And it was sort of, I had been very curious about man on the moon, and since I had heard my husband, he had let me come up. I was always had this connection, which he found interesting, with the ESP UFO people, but I didn't like to talk about it at all, but I was told not to by my grandparents or my grandmother, and just because people didn't believe back then in anything like UFOs and all of this. And I had some friends that were astronauts and engineers, and they sort of believed like I did, but we had to meet in secret to talk about it. We'd go to these, whenever somebody would decide to have a meeting at their house, we would go to these meetings. So it was a underground group of people, and I was very young. I was in my late teens, but I looked very mature for my age, so they automatically thought we were in our early 20s. But Tom had 5 scholarships. He was very smart and worked at NASA, and Chris Kraft got him on there to keep him out of the war, or Vietnam War. And anyway, we had gone up there, and I'd left this part out because I was up to having Lauren, the second baby, but which Jan and I were talking about where we were when man walked on the moon. But I had left this part out about going up to Montauk Point, and I believe it's instrumental in being part of my story because it's a part of my life that I felt like I was connected to these people from another world, or a part of us, and the people that look like us that come and go from this planet also worked with the Greys. And at this particular time in my life, I felt that this ESP energy I had some type of connection with what we call the Greys, and yet they didn't seem terribly, they were more like the ones on Stargate, if you've ever seen the movie Stargate. They were intelligent, and they weren't evil, and that my husband and I found them to work on spacecraft not of Earth origin above us in the future, and in our future, on this linear timeline that we're talking about now, because it's April 16, 2014. And this I'm talking about was around June to August 1968. And I've often wondered, because I met a young boy that was playing on the beach, and his family, his father worked at this classified area too. I don't know who that was. I've often wondered if it's not somebody that Janet has met or had over to do a talk, named Andrew Bashaga, which I've mentioned, but I can't prove or deny. But it was probably not. But I often wondered, because he had mentioned living up in that area, and I don't even know how old Andrew is. But there's something we've thought about and mentioned in the first year we did 2012. At the end of the year, we were talking, maybe that could have been, because we were talking about that Montauk Point and what could have gone on there. It's pretty mystical, and it's an unsolved mystery as to what type of work they were doing, whether they were using people that had some type of connection with ESP, remote viewing, working with people off the planet. But I do believe that people in the government knew certain people had connections. They couldn't prove it, but I think I'd done enough mentioning underground, but still it could have leaked. Somebody could have leaked it, or we could have had a mole in our groups up in Houston as to whether or not they knew or believed I was one of those or not. Remains to be seen. That's part of my future, is solving all these questions I have in my own life. Now, with that said, I can go back into where we flew back to Houston after I got deathly ill up there. I found out I was pregnant, I believe is what the doctor said. Of course, he didn't do a test to prove it. But I got really sick, and I had these recurring dreams with these Nordics or with these humanoids, and working with people underground and with these Greys. And these recurring, whether they were dreams or really happened, I can't tell at this time in my life. I know I'd like to believe that what I experienced was in reality. But I can share with you that it was, like, to me, an underground base up there that was connected somehow with doing classified work. And the only details I can tell you is I have these remote viewing visions in my head that have never gone away since that period of time. And I saw they had a beautiful 2- or 3-story home out where we were, and I remember that, and being in bathing suits and out on the beach with these influential people and going to these nice dinner parties, and then meeting these doctors in white coats, and then them talking about the classified and me going up to the gate. I remember being in a car going up to the gate, and there was a plane on some type of whatever you put a plane on and they stick it on a stick. What is that called? Whatever that is. It was documented.
What? They put it on a stick?
It's a jet on a stick. It's as you enter the gate. I remember it being there, and I've seen it in where the old Air Force base used to be, and Grumman had classified documents artwork. Yeah, it's on a pedestal of some type. You know, it's for it's to mark as you come in the gate. I don't know. It's for, you know, when they have like here at Huntsville, they have missiles. It's
right.
Just I remember what the gate looks like, and there was a plane there. And then I saw it one day. Somebody had told me to look at a YouTube to verify or to see if that was the same place it was. So whatever I knew in my head matched this location. You know, so I know that that's where I was, and that's where I'd been. And as far as I knew, they had some type of communication device. And some people call it the chair, and others don't. So whether they actually confirmed or if they were doing remote viewing, I can't confirm or deny that. But it's an important part of the story because it matches so many people that want to know the truth. And all I can tell you is I know that I had a gift or talent for being in contact. Now, when when Man Walked to the Moon, which Jan and I discussed last time, I had just shared that I'd seen this gentleman come and go and said psychically or with ESP that he wanted to have a baby with me, which was really strange. I'd never seen the man. Very nice looking. He was human in body, but he didn't have to talk, and nor did he. And
right.
He came back later after this, I want to have a baby with you, and then I can remember checking on Angela and going to my room, but I don't remember any real hot and heavy sex going on. But maybe it's because I don't want to. I may have blocked it out. But
you got the impression that he left you pregnant.
Yeah, I got the major impression, and that's when you asked me last week.
Which baby is that? That's your second?
Lauren. And I remember losing a baby. And I could have lost that baby. I remember losing a baby or having this big, large clot during that time, and you had asked me if I'd lost a baby there, or if that was the baby I lost. And I don't know.
You're not sure of the baby that you created with this strange man.
If I lost that baby,
ethically,
or it was taken.
Is Lauren or is the one you lost?
Right. And I'm sure Lauren.
What do you think? I think on some level you know. What do you think?
Well, I'm not sure because I remember I remember being dumbfounded when I had this miscarriage. Just go to the bathroom. I didn't know I was pregnant, and then I saw this large clot thing come out of me, which isn't pleasant to talk about on the radio show. But if any woman's ever had that happen, it's very shocking because you lose something the size of a red apple. It's like you're, something inside, and I was in shock, and I asked my mother about it, and she said, "Well, you may have lost a baby or been pregnant and not known about it, And,
well, that's very, very common for women to have spontaneous miscarriages, but I guess the key that we're looking at is, do you think you miscarried this, or this is the child that survived?
I don't know. I had told, that's why Lauren won't talk to me, but she's under some misguidance from, she was always special. She looks like me, and she doesn't want to talk about any of this, and she feels like it's just, and I ran her off because of not meaning to. Out of 4 daughters, I still talk with Angela, Ginger, and Stephanie. But Lauren hasn't talked to me since we went up to help with Gigi's boys in Florida. And it's been, and Mother, I told you, Janet, Mother had, gone through this thing with a letter.
Like
so I don't
senile
know.
dementia almost, or Alzheimer's or something.
No, she
had a brain tumor.
Later on,
it was her mind,
yeah,
right?
she got a brain tumor, cancer.
Right.
Yeah. But, I don't know. Mother just wrote something, and I don't know if Mother was, she knew that I was, this is later on in life, folks, when Mother was getting, the last, I'd say 5 years of her life, she had apologized to me for writing things that she wished she hadn't. She didn't know what possessed her to write. There's apparently some evil things about she loved me dearly and desperately, and I don't know if that's part of it, but also I had shared some things I shouldn't have with Angela, or with Lauren, about our past that she didn't really take to, so I don't know. But that's 1 out of 4 daughters that just is choosing to be very professional, very into the matrix, and doing her banking and not want me to share about, I guess I haven't talked to her about it because we don't talk. But that's why I was saying the last week that I had to be careful about what I said about this whole part of me, because I don't want her to feel threatened or people bothering her, right, about who she is, or if she may feel like she's part alien hybrid or whatever, because none of us really ever know. We really don't, and what can and can't be done. We can only speculate and have thoughts of what we ourselves are creating. And so I created 4 beautiful daughters, and I have a long story to tell of continued supervision, I guess, or I know who I am in various past lives. It's very complicated. It's how did I came to know myself through all these years, and I have not written my book. I've written about 20 books, but none of them about just me and my personal life. It's always been guarded because there's a lot of mysteries that can't be explained, and I believe it's going to help a lot of people when we all do come together with our reality, because the reality is so much stranger than fiction. And, up till now, Janet and I both have discussed things in our past that you just don't add up with the way we were taught to believe in this world. It just doesn't make any sense. However, with mine, I've had government interaction, and later on, Janet does as well. Later in her life, as working on in Hawaii. So we'll get to that. But right now, I just sort of like to pass over having my 4 daughters, but they do have a lot of UFO sightings with me that they can't deny. And 3 of them don't. 1 of them we don't know because she only talks to Stephanie. She doesn't talk to Angela, me, or Gigi. So, wow. Yeah, you understand that this is during a time when people still didn't believe in UFOs, and yet we were having them. And even
some people still don't believe in UFOs.
Yeah, this is true. Hard to believe, even with Armstrong, all these various astronauts coming out, and the NASA photos and NASA films, and all the explanations we've had, and then people seeing them all over the world. It's very unfortunate that people don't believe that happens. I truthfully believe in ET contact, and growing up, I believe certain ones of us have been monitored, and for whatever reasons are communicating back and forth and have that ability. And through this process that Janet and I are creating,
they kind of select certain bloodlines. People
that could be. I don't
DNA.
know that they haven't confirmed that to me. Only that they confirmed they choose whom they choose, and it didn't have anything to do with the bloodline. But that's what Hollywood has come forth with. Sensationalism, whether a human would have to ask each person that's had a movie made whether or not it was the truth. Now, Travis Walton, I don't know. He's the only one that I've seen doing UFO conferences for MUFON because they made a movie with Travis Walton, Fire in the Sky. Betty and Barney Hill, I never heard why they were chosen. There was a mixed couple out of Connecticut, and Kathy Martin is the niece, and she carries that story forward at the MUFON conferences. Other than that, I had read 1 or 2 books by Bud Hopkins and taking people back, and I know in psychology and in hypnotherapy that many people have come forth and said, well, there's pros and cons as to whether they were led down that path or not, or if it was just things they wondered or had heard about and wondered about themselves. So we haven't professionally really gone down that road. I haven't done a complete investigation or research on the many thousands, but I do understand that Joe Montaldo has a show out of New Orleans, and Montaldo. Anyways, a friend of mine on Facebook, but he emailed me when we were IMing back and forth that he had like the largest case history of ET contactees, like over 2,000. It might have been 2,600 last year. And I don't know, but Janet, you're really interested in that, and you've seen various hypnotherapists sharing their stories at conferences, including the woman from Australia.
It's huge at conferences, and I hope that you, this year in 2014, we'll make it to a few of them so we can meet somewhere in time.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back to the. So you're in Montauk, and what's going on? Back to Montauk.
Well, I did that already, and that's about all I can tell you.
So let me ask you some questions. Okay, because I got lost in here. So you went to Montauk, and you just had one baby at that time, right?
Yes, I took Angela with me on the plane. She rode in my lap.
And you're pregnant?
I didn't know I was, but once I got up there and was terribly sick at my stomach, and was doing some type of work about what I knew with some of the people that believed a little bit. We discussed UFOs and extraterrestrials with these people. They were
now, what
working.
What was the basis for you going there? Was it the summer vacation?
I don't
or were
know.
You recruited by the military?
I don't know. I never did know. I don't know if Steve. It seems like we were there for months, and it seems like, I don't know if Steve had extra work to do up there or what, but it seemed like it was pre-planned. And I do know that for the first time I kept saying, but I thought we're not supposed to talk about UFOs, but we did an awful lot of talking about it with people I'd never met and people in white coats.
And what did they say when they said we're going to take you to this military? You were used to going on military bases because of your husband, correct?
Yeah, it was no big deal to me. I was accustomed to them working there, so it could have been pre-planned. It could have been, I did always feel like there was an underlying current, just as, even though I was a young teenager, and that I believed in them and had encounters that these people were maybe wanting to test some type of theory that I could talk to them, because I always had the memories of speaking with these beings.
So we know that they track people, knowing what we know now. They knew about your contact, and they knew about your abilities to have telepathy, and they were recruiting for Montauk these people that had psychic abilities, because they were able to interact with the extraterrestrials and interact with the extraterrestrial or chair that was of extraterrestrial origin, and open up the time portals and the interdimensional portals, et cetera, yada, yada. So were you taken in, were you in the chair at all? Did you see the chair?
Well, I know about the chair, but see, here's the deal. I know about it in my reality in this life and one-off planet.
No, I'm talking about back then. Back then. We're still back in time. Be back there as we are now.
Back then,
and you're going through this thing. You were taken. Where were you taken, and what were some of the things that was going on?
Well, I remember going underground, in the basement or underneath, and it was very clean. It was very surgical, I guess you'd say. It's when you're around aircraft and things they're working on, it's a very clean, sterile is the word I'm looking for, sterile environment.
Right.
And
I've been on military bases, so they keep it kind of zen. It's not messy, it's zen, it's very functional, at least the one I was on. Yeah,
exactly. So I have this memory in my head that has never left me, and I've seen it similar in movies that it made me wonder where they get all their movies from. But I really believe there was some type of connection, whether we were making it to another world or not, I don't know. It could have been like a screen in a video, or it could have been the real thing. And this is what, in my mind's eye, the memories I have, unless I could go back, is a connection of communication. And I thought that's why, that I was chosen to go there. In my mind, I feel like there was something going on, and they were trying to see if my stories to these engineers or these NASA people, if they were trying to confirm with people up in New York area, for whatever reason, if they were confirming my thoughts, my communication with people there. I wondered that, but I couldn't prove it, and I didn't know it. No, nothing was ever explained, ever. It's not like I can give you a script.
Me, when I was on on a military base. I'm haunted. I'm absolutely haunted. My soul goes there. It's like I have lost pieces of my soul. And I have the conscious memories of the abductions, the main abduction, and that may not have been I know that was not the only one. That was not the only one. And I haven't explored them. But I know that my soul is just absolutely haunted and goes back there, and it flies out of this bed here in Hawaii, in Maui, and it goes across the ocean, and it goes back there to Johnson Atoll, and I'm there, but I seem to be not in the right dimension. I'm in an alternative universe of Johnson Atoll. So you said that it somehow deeply affected you, and that affected me as well. Also, when I used to walk past this one room, I think it was on the 3rd floor, what was called the JOC building. Maybe it was the 4th floor. I know the 5th floor was kind of empty. It was the 3rd or 4th floor, and it was blocked, so you could not see when the doors would come open, and in most of the rooms you could see right into the offices and see into the rooms. But this one had a block, so when the door opened, you couldn't see anything but this artificial, it wasn't a wall, it was just a barricade that was taller than you could see, but I could feel them, and I could feel that telepathic communication, and it makes your third eye chakra buzz, and you look at it, and you just focus, and your eyes get big, and go, what in the world is that? But you're in a military base, and it's broad daylight, and there's people walking past you and behind you, and you can't stop and do anything because you're not supposed to know about extraterrestrials, and you're not supposed to question anything because you're on a military base. And you just keep walking. So I don't know if you had anything similar like that when you went to
Well,
military.
I have, but
an energy like at these bases.
It is
and
an
I think
energy feeling.
There, yeah.
It is, and it's like almost euphoric, but not quite euphoric. I don't think I should use that word because in psychology it's not a good word if you feel euphoria. But it's more of a high from a being in contact with something. It's when I know things, and I know it's like deja vu, it's serendipity, it's synchronicity, it's a rush of energy that is a knowing. It's not a thinking. It's above thinking. It's higher than that because it seems to be when I'm thinking between the temples of my ears or inside my brain. But this is like at the top of my brain, and it rolls forward to back and back forward. But it's like a high. I'm trying to think of something, a rush. It's happened to me a couple times when I've played and been on a straight run of making a lot of money playing 21, and I'll be in thousands and thousands of dollars and lots of black chips. I can tune that in, and it used to feel, and I'd always think of it, oh, that's that UFO ESP energy. It's what I'd call it, because It's a connection to something higher than myself, outside of myself. And it's like I'm tuned in, and I've never had to teach this, or no one's ever asked me how to do it, so I haven't tried to set it down into lessons. Now, we do have the Ascension Center lessons in these books I showed you, Jean, at the Ascension Center Psychic Awakening classes that deals with how to bring in your guides and your chakras and all of that. And those are the basic lessons that I learned growing up and in the 80s. And I do abide by them. I do believe they're good. I believe learning the energy and the Kundalini rising and all this Tantra energy is as close to anything that I've felt, that energy shooting up your spine and coming out to the top of your head that makes you feel open. Like your skull's still there, your head's still there, and if you put your hand on it, and it's if you put your hand on it and then you take your hand off, you can feel the difference, hand on, hand off. Well, this is, your skull's there. It doesn't blow off, but it's opening, and it feels just like when I do psychic readings with the cards. It's the same feeling. And
Great.
I always, from the time I was little, I always related it to E.T., these beings.
Because it is.
Connection. It feels
I think
like
it is.
And I'm not able to control it. I never know when that portal or that energy or that radio connection or waves is going to be in tune. I don't know if it means that they're sending energy through the wormhole over to the main ship and then down to me, because through all the years, when we get up into our older years, we can discuss all our spacecraft connection and, your job story. But I know it's important, and I know that we're going to have to gradually do discuss all. We're going to have to go back and put these Wednesday stories together.
Right, and then we can write it all up. We need to write it up and
put it on.
We have a lot of work.
Well,
but at least we're getting it down. It seems to be pretty easy to just talk about it, especially for women. We're natural talkers. So, okay, so after, let me see if there's any more questions. So you were in Montauk. You had this mysterious thing going on. You had this energy, which you and I both are familiar with because we both have been in contact with ETs from a very young age. Maybe we are ET. Maybe we've never been disconnected, but definitely something was going on, and you can tell it.
I want to bring people together that are psychotherapists, if they are, or the woman from Australia, maybe if she comes back and we can catch her at a conference. But I believe there's certain people that are going to be drawn.
You mean Mary Rodwell? Or is that somebody else?
Yeah, I think
She's
that's who it was.
Wonderful. I think we could ask her to come on our show one of these days and talk about our experiences. That'd be great.
Haven't you already had her? Because I had her on the websites for 1 or 2 years.
I've had her on twice, and every time we talk, it blows our minds because there's such a connection there. She's so in tune with the information. She works with all these people all over the planet. They call her continually, and she's just amazing.
Well, people have asked me through the years to continue teaching, and I had to step away from it because it was almost like I was becoming someone that I didn't want to devote my entire rest of my life in my 30s to that, and I was making money to support my children. But yes, Mary Rodwell, I just pulled her up to look at her picture because I had her linked in on some of my websites because of her work. And then there's Dolores Cannon, too, over here that just did the...
Right. And Dolores has delightful energy especially when you're in person with her. She's just a sweetheart. So it'd be great to... these are women. The women are leading the way with the contactees. We had the generation of Bud Hopkins and John Mack, and they're both crossed over to the other side, and now it seems like the women are leading the way, and it feels good to have women doing that. I've worked with lots of contactees, but there's a lot more to do. We just have so much to do with the contactee information, and it starts with us telling our story. So what else would you like to say about that time period before we switch over to, and we got to keep an eye, it's already 3:48. Wow. We're only on for an hour. So it's going to take a long time for us to get through this, but this is okay.
Well, I booked it for 90 minutes.
You booked 90 minutes. Okay. We can go 90 minutes.
We got 40 minutes according to my scheduled 90 minutes because we had agreed because 60 wasn't getting it done, but we didn't want to go 2 hours. But 90 minutes, people can hang with you that long.
Okay, hang with us. All right, so what else would you like to say about
you're supposed to share yours.
I am.
Your period.
I'll take. Are you passing the ball to me? I'll take it.
Passing the ball to you because we can go into all these details. Yeah.
Okay, well, you're free to ask me questions, too. So I think where I left was Did I talk about the goal that came out of the stairwell? Did I tell that story?
Yeah, you've told that 2 times.
And I told the story about the guardian angel at the foot of my bed. Okay, so here's one thing, and this was all through. I left my parents'
You're going
house.
to your college years.
Well, I'm not quite there yet. I'm almost out the door. I left my parents' house when I was 18. So one of the critical things that used to happen to me is that I would travel astrally, astral projection. I've always been able to travel astrally. And I would go out my crown chakra, and I'd walk down out of my bedroom, down the hallway, down the stairs, all through the house, through the living room, dining room, kitchen, down the stairs to the basement, and there was a hole in the wall opposite the furnace, which led to an underground cavern. And I would go down this cavern. It was very distinct. It was like it was precarious. It was kind of like a ledge you had to walk down, and then it flattened out. And then it was a large room with huge bricks. The bricks were oversized, like giants would have made bricks. And there were these vats, like big beer barrels from the 1800s. And they were on their side, but they were huge. They were like the size of, a room, and there were dozens of them on either side.
Was it in your house or underneath?
This was an underground cavern underneath the house, way down. I was traveling down, going towards the hollow earth to the netherworld, and there was illumination. There wasn't any visible light source, but it was light enough to see, but it was kind of dim. And I heard this drip, 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 and there was a stickiness to the floor. So even though I was in my astral form, I could feel the stickiness to the floor. And I would keep going down further until I came to a room, and the room was very strange. It was very well lit from the inside. It seemed like it was sand-type walls, like a sandy color walls, and I had to crawl around on my knees. But I crawled around all 4 sides, and it was glass, and I could see in, and I was like, how do I get into this room? Why am I crawling around this room? And then there's a part where I just didn't remember. I would get so far down, I wouldn't remember, and then I remember traveling back. And I did this all the time, constantly. I was searching for something. I was having experiences, and I would just remember going and coming back, going and coming back. And one time I decided to put my finger down and touch this sticky stuff. And I pulled it up to my eyes, and I went, ooh, is that blood? Is that wine? Is that blood? What is this? What is this stuff? I didn't know what it was, but I had a creepy feeling like, what was it? So that was profound. So one of the things, I would see things that my friends couldn't quite see when they were alone. But there was something about being with me, so I would invite them to camp out in my backyard. And when we were sleeping out, all these UFOs, now they were distant, they were lights, but they were definitely, not moving like airplanes. They were going back and forth and up and down, and they would be stationary, and then they'd speed. Just all night long we would do these. And I would walk down the hill with I lived at the bottom of a hill. Avalon and Bellevue, kind of like, if you walk up the hill, the main street is like the top of the hill, and it's flat, and then it goes down on either side. It was a very strange town. So we'd walk down the hill, and as we were walking home, we loved to go out summers, and it was the 60s. It was very peaceful back then. Kids could go out and not be afraid of getting kidnapped, and we would go to Bellevue, and we'd hang out, and we'd be walking home, and as we were walking down the hill, these large orbs, huge orbs, we're talking, I don't know, about 100 feet in circumference or something. They're just 100 times larger than any of the modern orbs, and they were bright colors, like orange, green, yellow, and red, bright colors. And I would say, do you see those? And they'd say, yeah. And I go, what are you seeing? So we'd see these. They were very mysterious, and most times people would see it when they were with me for some reason. So that was one final, let's see, one more thing. Okay. So this is still teenage years. One time when I was setting up Christmas lights, you pull them out and you check them to see if they get the whole string working. I was with my girlfriend. We were all alone, and we could hear somebody walking down the hall, but we were all alone, and it was a ghost. And they would walk. For some reason, they would walk, and the boards would creak, and they said creak down the hall, and this ghost walked right through me and right through my girlfriend, and we didn't care if it was November or December, whatever. We just stood up, we ran out of the house. So I've had this house, which was an interdimensional portal. So one last thing, and I'll go back to you. So when I probably was 15, I wasn't married yet. I got married at 16, right before my 17th birthday, and I was coming home from visiting my boyfriend, and I felt something as I was about to go up the stairs to my house. I felt something. And you've felt this too, TJ. I know you have. And I turned around, and treetop right over my best friend's house, and it was literally treetop, was a huge cigar-shaped UFO with the portals all around it, and I could see them looking out at me, the beings. But it was so far up, but it was I could see there was something there, but I couldn't quite make out 100% what it was, but I could feel that energy, and I was in another time zone because there wasn't a single car that went by, there wasn't a single person that walked by, the crickets stopped making their noise that they make in summer. It was eerie, and they wanted me to pay attention. They froze time, and I looked at them, and I finally said, "Thank you for showing yourself to me. I get it. I'm going to go to bed now." And I left and went into the house. Okay, back to you.
Well, that wasn't very much time. No fair. I spent more time.
Okay.
But I guess
let's see what else.
on chronologically where you're at on your life
told
story.
About snapping at the air. Her name was Candy, because once again the ghost would walk down the stairs. The ghost would knock on my bedroom door. A lot of times I didn't have a witness, but finally one time my husband and I got married, so it was 1970, and maybe been 71 or something, and he was sitting in the bed, and I said, "There it is, finally." It's like you love to have those witnesses, right? So finally it made the noise and knocked on the door. So let's see. So anyway, back to kids. So I never had kids because they were constantly harvesting my eggs, and that was very sad for me because I had all my girlfriends were getting pregnant, and they had kids on their knees, and there I was barren, and I knew that they would never let me have a child. There was a communication that they're just not going to let me bear a child, that I can try all I want, and I knew they were harvesting my eggs because they were coming at a certain time of the month, and that's when I had contact. I started monitoring my cycle when I was a teenager, when I started being sexually active, so I knew when I was fertile, and my contact was when I was ovulating, when I was fertile, and I started to get very anxious and depressed that I knew they weren't going to let me do it. And so that was my years. All my friends were having kids. My brothers started having kids, and there I was. So you were lucky you had kids, and I know there was something else that was supposed to be my destiny. So do you want me to go back to you?
Well, I knew I wasn't going to have any children in this life, and I didn't. I was programmed not to have any. So
and you have 4.
I had 4. My mother said, and you were the one that weren't going to have any children, because she knew all my life. She'd talk about someday when I'd have. I always said, "Mom, I'm not going to have any kids. I'm not going to have any children." And I knew that, and I would just always tell her very matter of fact. So when I became pregnant with Steve's baby, Angela, she was shocked. just in total shock because I wasn't going to have children. And then here of course, anybody in our family could pop babies, and we were built big and wide hips and all that, have babies easy. But I do want to find there's something here about the people. With my husband, Tom, has no children, and he has been off planet. And I asked the government if there was someone they wanted, someone to keep up with, and that's how I got to meet Tom on their level. But he has no children, and of course those up there, the extraterrestrials or whatever, I believe they had it planned for him and I to meet. So this is part of the interesting story. But then you don't have any children, and then I told you Bill M. Tracer, he's born on May 16th like Tom, and he started listening to my show in 2012, and on I think it was January 2013, we figured the date up not too long ago. It's like January something 7th or 17th, but he came on, and because I found a show talking to him in the chat room, and so because I wanted him to be with us a year in order to be a director for our nonprofit.
Right.
But he has no children and born May 16th. Is that coincidental or not? If there's no coincidences, then why do I have two men? They're both born on May 16th. And these are just things we should look at. I mean, these are above and beyond, but it is part of my UFO story, my ET story, as to just the things that happened. And I find it very interesting that Bill and he are both born on May 16th, and they have no children, and they're both in my life. And you have no children, but I'm attracted to you, and you have. I mean, we don't know why this, and we haven't given up. We haven't quit. This is our third season, and we're still going hot as ever. And it's like we're just now starting to tell our story. When we haven't even crescendoed yet, and this is the third year. And we were here to do this. I know this. I have very different, not thinking, but knowing of why I'm here, my sole purpose, and to usher in the Ascension Age, and to be here for extraterrestrial understanding and making it, raising the vibration and the people into knowing around the world about this tipping point. And I knew it was going to happen at 7 billion. But I would know things. They would put these thoughts in my head, and I know they do it. And without sounding, too strange, but just always keeping my mouth shut about it. But now that I'm starting to talk about it, it sounds different, but it doesn't sound as strange as I thought it would sound, because now so many people have had so many sightings all over the world. And I remember 2007, 8, 9, telling people you've got to have more websites out there on the Internet about this, and we've made it quite a large industry of people. Of course, MUFON's been doing this and having conferences for so many years, but we were wanting to have something separate from MUFON, and we've been able to do that with all these websites.
But this is, yeah.
And John
so
Greenwald.
How old are you of your last? So I took it through to 1972 when I left home, and I was born in 54, 64, 74, so I'm my late teens.
That's a pretty sound.
You start talking. Go ahead,
what is
your
that
turn.
Sound? Is that a phone?
I gotta go. Gotta call you back later, okay? I'm on the radio. Okay, thanks. Sorry, someone I've been trying to reach for days.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
well,
so I'm 18 when I at the end of that whole part there. I'm 18, and so I leave home.
You go to college.
I didn't go to college. No, I didn't get to go to college because my parents were very poor. My husband was working at H.J. Heinz, and I think he was making $3.65 an hour. We thought that was a lot of money back then. That was a lot of money back then. I was working at Photomat. I made, I don't know, $1.25 an hour, something like that, $1 an hour. That was the times. And my brother was going to get drafted into the Vietnam War, and my parents wanted him to go to college because they deferred it for 4 years. let's see, he graduated high school in '64. So,
and what's funny is Tom and I didn't go right to college either. We got some after we got in the military. Well, I wasn't in the military yet, but he got his after he got in the military. But he had very poor education upbringing, and because his parents moved around constantly. And I'm finding there's similarities in that we weren't taken from the ones you would think, or the ones they think that go to work for NASA and the universities and the engineers and the scientists. They're never chosen for this extraterrestrial work.
Right.
There's something to, it's not about the education that we think it should be about. But, I went on, I was always going to go to college in my mind, and my parents went back and got to college, but they too were right out of high school and got married, and, similarities. But I didn't go till after Gigi was born. I went back. So Gigi was born January 27th, and that's when I died with placenta previa that most people that follow our shows know about. So I had Angela March 25th, 1968, and then got pregnant while man walked on the moon and apparently lost one, and then had Lauren April 3rd, 1970, and then I had Steffi on Friday the 13th, Friday 13th, 1971. So they're very close in between there, the two in the middle. And so Angie was only like 2.5. Well, she was just turned 2 March 25th when I had Lauren. So she was only 2 years old. And my grandmother came to stay with me, and she trained her helped me potty train her, or where she didn't have to wear a diaper anymore by just spending time and teaching her how to sit on the potty. So that was interesting. But then I had Lauren, and then Steffi was born August 13th, 1970, Friday 13th. And then Gigi was the one I had placenta previa, and it changed my life again. I had died when I was in the second grade, at age 7, I believe. And then I died again and talked to these beings again, January 27th, 1974. And I had no high school education or anything. I had to go back and get my GED at Alvin Community College after this. I mean, I wanted education. I was going to college, but the times were during the Vietnam War, and all we were thinking about was keeping Steve from going to Vietnam and working at NASA. And I went to work at Nassau Bay National Bank. That's where I met the astronauts, too. They'd come through the bank with their gold Corvettes, black bat wings. So I met them through there. They'd flirt. I'd flirt because I was a young teenage. But Nassau Bay. And then I worked for a Mr., what was his name? Redding Realty in Pasadena, Texas. But I learned, and then I told you about managing apartments. So I always worked. I always had to work because it took both of us. So I managed apartments, and then I managed townhouses when I was pregnant with Lauren for Newton B. Schwartz, attorney at law. And then when I had 3, I had to move over to 10201 Telephone Road, some new apartments he bought, and was the assistant director for the child care center there. It was a new thing he was trying, a new concept where people could work, and they just took a couple of apartments and made it one big indoor and had to reshape it to meet all the codes to where we could cook there for the children and then have a room and then had an outdoor play area fenced in. But we took care of children during the day while the parents worked. So that was how I managed. We always got free rent, so it didn't cost us to live. So his paychecks went further, of course. And then we had a townhouse. It was very nice, 2-story townhouse. And then when I had Gigi, we had moved over to Tom had left. The government was going through all these changes and things cut and all this, so he went to work for U.S. Homes. And we moved to out near my mother in a brand new subdivision called Briargate at the time off of South Main and between Stafford. And then I had a baton twirling school there in Stafford. and Sugarland area, and we lived in Briargate, and we got to go to Acapulco that year and came back, and then I had got pregnant with Gigi and had her January 27th, 1974. But that's when I had to learn to walk, talk, and everything all over again. And Gigi is quite unique. She's different. She didn't speak for a long time. And,
oh, really?
Yeah, and then even after Tom and I, she was very shy, very smart. She's very brilliant. We had to put her in Montessori, and she went to high school in New York, and which is funny because I was in New York, he was in New York, and they went between New York and Florida, and then he moved. When I was in the military in Illinois, he came with the kids up to Illinois, and then I went, and this was in '87 when I flew over to Washington for my I didn't know I was a rehire. I didn't know I had to put it together because I knew I'd never been in the military, and I remember back in the 60s wanting, and I couldn't because I had children, and I thought that was very odd how my life turned out, that I could go and be working for the government direct. And I remember them telling me I had joined the Navy in '85, and they had the government in Washington and intelligence groups. Name whichever you want, alphabet soup.
The alphabet.
But we just they bought my my U.S. Navy government contract in '85. I had joined 4/29/85 officially, where I went through boot camp in Orlando. But my children, so Gigi was 74, 84. She was only 11 years old, but she was in Sea Cadets. She liked but it's hard to believe that, but she grew up knowing me through the military those 8 years. And then I moved to Hawaii, and Stephanie came over and Gigi came over. They were the two babies. But the other two girls didn't want to because of their high school years. They wanted to stay in Florida while their dad worked down there around Cape Canaveral and all that in Florida. And he lived in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, and worked there some too. But he traveled too, in and out of country some at the last. And then he passed with cancer at a very young age. And by this time they were all grown in their 20s. And he didn't pass till Tom and I had already met. He met Tom. Tom and I were already together. And he passed 86, I believe. Because Tom and I were together in '85, and I believe.
What did he die from?
Cancer.
Cancer. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, he had cancer, and then my mother died of cancer, which is an odd God coincidence. But it's very common in today's time, more and more from the food, I think, more than anything that we eat.
Right.
Who knows where it all comes from? But I try to do my best. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just so after what's your next kind of paranormal UFO thing that was happening?
Well, after the kids, they're all here, and I was wanting to go back to college and all of that, and I became a law enforcement officer and all that, where I know that I'm going to. I can see my future. What starts happening is none of it made sense because I knew this program in my mind of ET UFOs, and I wasn't supposed to have children. So I was like, how can I be having this life that's not mine? It was like I came to this planet internalizing one part of me, knowing my future, and because I was on the planet, I knew that I got off course. Even though I had children and I loved them very much, I didn't have that maternal, internal, I can't explain it. It was like I knew that I had a much bigger calling, a much more worldly mission. I always knew that, and I always, And so I had this internal conversation going with these beings. And folks, if you go back and listen to this or know my history of when I was younger, and then with my children, we'd have UFO sightings and with their friends. So all this was going on while they were growing up. And
do you think you had more than sightings? You may have had encounters or abductions, or...
Well, I maybe. With my children, I don't know. I just know we had a lot of sightings because it had to be part of their lives. I knew that they accepted it, and I wasn't going to have them, even though we didn't talk about it much. They knew that Mom was different, and Mom could do ESP. They accepted that, and they knew that I had UFO sightings, and they followed us everywhere. So my children grew up knowing that, and then that was unique, but it was who they were, and they accepted it. And it made for a uniquely different life in the 70s and the 80s until I had gone to Rochester, and they elected to go back and live with their dad in Florida so they could finish school while I was in the military. And so we had a separation between me and the girls during their teen years until they joined me in Hawaii. So that 85, 86 point, now in between there, I remember I had divorced their dad, and I had an experience in Houston where I went back to work for Newton, and I talked to them, and they would come and stay with me that summer. It was only before I joined the Navy. We had divorced, and they came to stay with me, and I had a flyover. And they went to stay the weekend with my brother Hugh, and I had a flyover and very low. And I know when they were growing up, this is stuff that I forget, but it should be in the story, because while they were little, you ask if we had, things happened, but even their father knew, of course, from NASA and going to Montauk and all that, and my inner talk with him about them, but we wouldn't just live it. It was just a knowing that I was different. He knew it. He knew I had ESP because I'd used it on him when he was a young boy. And I could make him think things, and then he could say it, and he was like, how do you do that? And I was like, I don't know. I really don't know how it works. But we had UFO flyover going in to see Close Encounters, whatever year that came out, but I believe it was Close Encounters, because they took me to the hospital, and they said they'd had a lot of people.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind was 78, I think.
Was it?
Well, look it up.
He and I were still together, and I knew from seeing Close Encounters that they said that had several people come to the hospital that were, they gave me a brown bag, but it affected my mind so much because it was so close to my reality, and they were just said, oh, you're just one of like 5 people tonight that have come in after seeing that show.
Oh, really?
They asked what brought this on.
And what happened? Tell me again, what happened? You were having some kind of episode?
Yeah, I couldn't breathe. I couldn't, it was too close to reality for me.
Wow.
And my husband had to take me to the hospital, and it was like a knowing, but I was having to deal with, I'd seen it, Close Encounters on the screen, it was like
excited when I saw that. And I saw it first run, yeah. I'm trying to get here. 77.
All right, so the kid's father and I, we were still together in 1977. We didn't divorce till like 81, and we got together again for the kids, and again 82 or 3 or something like that. But it was a very interesting time. But 77, we had gone to see. When 2001 Space Odyssey came out, because we saw that.
Oh, that was way before. That was 68, but I'll look it up.
It was 68, okay. And then 7 years later is Close Encounters then.
Well, Close Encounters was 77, so it was
okay.
9
Well,
years.
that was 1977 was my reality check with, I knew how logical I was, I knew how intelligent I was, but I knew at that, when I saw that show, and I related with Richard Dreyfuss and the girl with the little boy, but Steve had decided I wanted to take the girls to see it, but he was very logical, like Spock, but he was a musician at night, the trumpet, but he felt like it was too mature for the children to see, and he didn't want them to see it. I'm glad they didn't go with us since I had this episode.
68 was 2001. Space Odyssey,
well,
yes.
I was, seems like I had just had Gigi. What does it say? What month it came out? May? It seemed like
no.
I just had Angela, but she was born March 25th, 1968. But we went to the Windsor with all these astronauts and engineers. They booked. It wasn't for the public. They booked the movie just for us. Isn't that interesting?
Wow.
Yeah, so they closed the whole theater down except for NASA people and astronauts and their engineers. So we all got to go see it together. It was a very big deal. And then in 78, I guess, was when I saw Close Encounters and had to go to the hospital that night. They didn't keep me, but they just gave me a shot of Benadryl in my wrist.
Wow. I haven't heard about people having to go to...
They said people got hyperventilated. I was one of them.
Oh, my God.
And, but it changed my mind. It just opened my eyes, and it opened that part of my head again, and I was having an episode of just, they said all it was hyperventilation. It just said for some reason people would forget to breathe in the show. they just blamed it on, but to me, I took it as, no, this is part of who I am and my reality, and I really believed it. I mean, I was like, no, I have these in my life. You know, this is part of who I am, and I just accepted it, and it changed me. I knew that was it was going to always be a turning point for me. You know, I was being very professional, and then by 78, I was I was already been in law enforcement and psychology, and had knew I was going to go to Hawaii someday. I started just knowing things.
Right.
But it was amazing to me because it wasn't things I could discuss with other people. I just had to raise I made straight A's. I was very smart. But I had died, and a lot of it I had clept out because I'd passed over. And I told them, no, I'd been out of body, and I'd seen all these stars, and I'd left the planet, and, you know, I knew who I was. And that a lot of had I not died, I wouldn't have known of my past lives and put this extraterrestrial business together. And, of course, people didn't believe in it, so you couldn't really talk about it. But I was trying to explain to these two women, they were giving all these tests, and they were just like, can't believe how much you know for your age. And you got 4 kids, and they just couldn't believe my whole life at this little Alvin Community College, 78. And, of course, this show came, but I was like, I knew I was called to do something, and I was going to do so much more. And I knew I was going to be here for what we're doing now, and that is the Ascension Age. But I didn't have a word for it yet. That didn't come till I was in Hawaii, and I told you about, maybe I never did explain it all to you in detail about did I explain it to you when I was sitting in the Cadillac?
I'm not sure what you're thinking about.
The lightning hit, and the logo came down for the word Ascension Center. The knowledge, it was like Zeus, and the lightning struck the tree in Oahu.
I had lightning struck a tree too. Did I have that? Did I explain that? Lightning struck a tree.
I've never heard you talk about it.
I'm going to add the lightning struck a tree. Okay, we only have a few minutes left. Why don't you tell us about the lightning struck the tree?
Well, it's about the Ascension Center. That's why I can never get away from it, because it was a mini miracle, and anybody else, think it sounds nuts, and I do too, telling this story. But it actually happened, and I had Jungle Beach. I moved to Hawaii, and I'd flown over there with my president, Philip Havelka, Chief Havelka, and he saw me at boot camp, in Great Lakes, and I was marching my little troops to cafeteria to eat in our little white uniforms, and he saw me, and I glanced over, although we were marching, you're supposed to stay attention. I was leading the group. I was the platoon leader or whatever. But he had seen me then, and then the next time me and my girlfriend, when we walked out, another time we didn't have to go in, I think it was a weekend or so, we didn't have to go together. He passed me by, and he said he was going to marry me. So I was like, yeah, right. Well, anyway, we wound up getting married. So we moved to Hawaii, and I'm sitting out one day at a corporation and had Jungle Beach, but I had this feeling that I'd get, this opening, and they come and go. And I told my partner, he was a little Calvin Ebesutani Japanese, something else was coming, and I wasn't going to just do Jungle Beach. I was going to do the Psychic Network, and that was coming up for me, and I had to fix that logo. And something else was coming, and then we're sitting there discussing. I'm like, I don't know what it is. I don't know the name of it, but it's bigger than anything I've done before. It has something to do with all this psychic work I'm doing and this extraterrestrial stuff. And, we'd already gone through psi seminars, so I was very open to change and creating more and better. And lightning split a tree right next to us in the Cadillac. And he said, whoa. He says, lucky we were in this car because we'd been hurt or maybe even killed. He said, but the rubber protected us. And he said, where do you think that come from? I was like, I don't know. But anyway, we go in, and we're talking to this guy, but did you see that? And he said, yeah. And he said, everybody from that, there was a little bitty park shopping corner type thing. It wasn't a big fancy, but it was a little strip center, so they all came out to look, and ambulance came and everything, but we just went on in to get this, whatever this was I was supposed to get made. I was trying to discuss with this little Indian that was sitting at a little computer, and they weren't on internet. We didn't even have internet yet. It was just a computer at a printing company there, like a quick print or something.
Right.
So I've got to get a logo made, and it's like a pyramid, but it's not. It's sort of like a UFO, but it's not. It's like three-pointed sides, and it's a pyramid with lines coming through it like a cathedral, but I can't explain it. And he was like, I don't know what. First of all, you probably have to draw it or something for me to understand what you're talking about. And he says it sounds rather complicated, and then lo and behold, bloom, it hits on the computer. And he jumps back while he's sitting in his chair, and he sort of pushes his feet up to stand up, and he backs up, and the chair goes out from under him, and he falls on his butt. And I'll never forget that. He said, whoa, are you a witch? How'd you do that? I said, I didn't do it. You did it. He said, I didn't do it. I can't do that. I was just telling you. It sounded too complicated. But is that what you're talking about? I said, yeah, that's it. And I said, where'd it come from? He said, I don't know. And so that's the Ascension Center. And I said, well,
wow.
I was like, where'd that come from? So anyway, it was really strange, and I said, well, can I have it? He said, yeah, I don't know where it came from. I couldn't. We only got 90 seconds on live.
Go ahead, finish your story.
So he just says, well, you can have it, and they print it out, and I said, well, what owe you? He said, 2 cents or something, or you don't know nothing. The guy asked the owner, and he said, don't worry about it. And I said, well, here's 2 or 3 cents for the copy anyway, the paper. So that's what I paid for it. But it's always been important because it all happened during like a 10 or 15-minute period just with the tree and then going in, and there it goes. And what? It's been part of the magic. I always knew that they wanted me to do this. I've always had this Zeus power connection, and I knew it had to be real. It just had to be part of this whole story. It doesn't make sense to anybody else, but it does to me. It all means something. And then, of course, you're running it now, so over there in Hawaii. So
I'm running it. Yes, I'm here.
Now we just got to connect all the dots and get all these people to understand what we're trying to create, and it's for a reason.
I want to do the conferences, so I'm holding that vision. I like conferences. I've been putting on conferences since I was 16, so they're fun. It's a good way to meet each other, and hopefully that's what we'll do. And
well, it's a way to get the stories out to the most people.
Here. What's that?
It's a way to get the story out to the most people, right? And the people that want to hear it. Not people that don't believe, but it brings people that think like we do together. And that's the whole point, I think, is to grow this Ascension Center is about raising conscious awareness that the extraterrestrials are real. They're human, and there's others out there, and we're going to bring all these believers together that think like we do to wind up being the majority, and it's going to take over the entire world.
People are waking up every day. They realize there are things out beyond five senses, physicality, reality, and they're starting to, connect the dots. They want to share. They're getting braver with everybody that shares. The other people getting bolder. They're realizing we're living in that matrix that they talked about, and it's a hologram, and it's artificial, and we're the ones holding it together, and we're the ones that can make it different because we are empowering each other and supporting each other to make a paradigm that's going to serve all of humanity, not just the power elite, not just the people at the top.
And we're finding each other, and I believe those above are helping us find each other, that there's a reason we're here.
Like it's divinely guided, so wow.
We're gonna
all right, well, I think that's the show for today. Do you have anything else to say? Any exit music?
Oh, I guess I could. That we should talk about. It is about educating humanity, and that's what that lady that you mentioned, her name, Ellen McDowell or whatever.
Oh, Mary Rodwell.
Mary Rodwell.
Well, she
has educatinghumanity.com, I think, or either somebody else does, but I just happened to get that. But, things come to us, and for a reason. And, Janet, I do believe that what we're doing is for a reason, and it is about ET contact growing up and us growing up with it.
So next week we're going to pick up with, we're still in our early 20s, and I'm going to mark this. Okay, yep, mark where I am in my story. Okay.
Where do we go from here?
We're going to start next week on Wednesday, same time. I guess it's 3 to 4:30 Hawaii time. What is it for your Eastern time?
Well, right now it's 9:30 too.
Okay.
But are you going to load it, or are you going to show me how to load it on Spreaker and then put it on the other one?
Yeah,
radio?
Why don't we log off and do some exit music, and I'll go to the bathroom, and then we'll come back. I'll call you back, okay?
Yeah,
and
call me back, and let's figure out how to load this for UK, because I think...
Okay, I'll do that. All right, so let's just sign off, and thank you, everybody, for joining us today. It's been a great time. Did we get anybody in the chat?
Nope.
Nope, okay. So hopefully somebody will join us next week. But until then, aloha, love, and blessings. Do you want to beam us out?
We'll just figure this all out
together. You have that beam sound?
Yeah, I've got some.
Okay, beam us out.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye. Aloha.
Bye. Okay, folks. This is Wednesday, and I'll be back Friday night. Let's see. I'm going to do Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And I'm going to take off Tuesday and Thursday. I'll come back and do this show with Janet and to market and promote what we're doing about extraterrestrial contact with what they call the Ascension Age and waking up the entire world and global process with extraterrestrial origin, and that we are all connected. And there's many people doing the work. We're just doing our part. So hope you'll join us every Wednesday with the Ascension Center, Janet Carroll Lessin, and Theresa J. Morris, ET Contact Growing Up. Thank you, and we will be back here next week, same time, same station, That is 9 Eastern, 8 Central, 7 Mountain, 6 Pacific, and 3 Hawaii time. Thank you so much for joining us, and look for our other shows right here on TJ Morris ET Radio, and Janet has Aquarian Radio, and together we are freedomtalkradio.net and .co.uk. Thank you.